something for those who
Okay.
watching, etc.
Yeah, so this is our empathy cafe. Everyone here is familiar with doing the empathy circle process, so we're not going to be.
I'm sorry, Marta, maybe.
You want Marta? Hey.
Oh, yeah, sure. Hello. We're here for the empathy cafe today, and everyone's happy with. Yeah, is everyone happy with recording?
I would rather not be recorded.
Okay. So because we're separate, we'll have two rooms, so I can be in the other one. Yeah, so the topic for today is to share the vision of the culture you desire. And we'll go into breakout rooms. Do you want to introduce yourselves for the recording? Or?
Oh yeah, I'm Edwin Rutch, and in San Francisco Bay Area.
Carolina?
I'm Bob Brown from Thousand Oaks, California, USA. And this is behind me is Yosemite National Park.
My name is Carolina. I'm calling from Poland. I'm a member of local Extinction Rebellion group, and I am also a member of Empathy Circle team. I'm calling from Poland, Central Europe.
Elle?
Hello, I'm Elle, and I am in Lancaster in England, and I'm also part of Extinction Rebellion.
Sophia?
Hi, I'm Sophia. I'm in Sweden, Malmö, and I'm eating at the moment.
Bill?
Hi, I'm Bill. I'm a retired special education teacher, a member of the Empathy 10 team, and also taking the XR facilitator training. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area with Edwin.
And Richard?
Hello, I'm Richard. Living at the moment in Germany. And at the moment, I'm almost in Poland. So I'm kind of close to the border with Poland. And I'm...
Okay. Hi, so I'm Marta. I'm in Cork in Ireland and part of the Extinction Rebellion here in Ireland as well. And yes, so who would like to facilitate the breakout rooms?
I can do the main one, number one, and you do number two with Elle and a couple others, so it will not be recorded.
Okay.
So I've got the rooms ready if you're ready to, whenever you're ready to. Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll just meet here before the end. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. You can join. Okay, so everyone knows the drill. I did want to sort of talk more about it. What is not just what do you want, for the culture you would like, or the vision, but also for a culture of empathy. Like some of us talked about that before. So if anyone is comfortable, talking about that, would love to hear. And actually, I'm speaking to Sophia. If you want to reflect that.
Do we keep time?
Oh yeah, would you want to keep time?
I can keep time. Mm-hmm. I just need a second to use my time machine.
Okay, so
5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was saying was I'd really like to talk about what a culture of empathy is because I'd like to get some documentation, to really kind of harvest the insights and create, some documentation to be able to lay out, articulate what a culture of empathy is. I think it's really important to do that, to have that vision articulated.
Yeah, so you want us to, or you wish us to talk about the culture of empathy specifically, and you want to do a documentation of the insights that we collect here, and yeah, was there anything?
Yeah,
more?
even create some articles or even a book about it. You know, like a blueprint for a culture of empathy is something I'm sort of envisioning. You know, to really lay out that vision.
Okay, so you want to create articles and books specifically about the culture of empathy. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, I know that you and Richard are both NVC practitioners, and I see that as sort of a deficit within NVC, that there's not a clear vision of what it's moving towards, right? It's like, and when I do mediation, I've been doing the mediation, I lay out, I said, we want to create a culture of empathy, which is, you know, each person feel heard, that there's a mutual hearing of each other, that we want to build, you know, trust and, you know, constructive relationship. And, you know, I kind of lay that out, and it really helps frame a mediation, because it tells us where it is we're going, instead of just some kind of a narcissistic getting my own self-centered needs, you know, kind of addressed. So
Right. Okay. So you see specifically in NVC communities that there isn't a clear vision towards the culture of what we're working for or towards, and that's what you want to create here with creating a culture of empathy. And you also want to use that in your mediation to sort of like make it, give them clarity about what it is that you're working towards, like, for example, trust, and so that people know what they are.
yeah, and I actually do that already, and I find it really helps. It's sort of, it's kind of one piece to build a constructive, you know, relationship, is knowing that we sort of agree that we want this, we have this intention. It's sort of, yeah, so yeah, so I'm just kind of laying out some ideas about this culture of empathy, you know, sort of concept or framing.
So it sounds a little bit like you want to create some values around what a culture of empathy is. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the values and the principles.
Yeah.
And it's also like with Extinction Rebellion, they're using holacracy, and holacracy, you sort of lay out the vision, and then people self-organize towards that vision. And people, you know, I think it's also helpful to have a sort of a vision that people can organize and work towards on their own. They don't need, you know, permission from anybody. It's just, yeah, this is the culture we want and to move towards. And
yeah, okay, so you make a comparison with the Extinction Rebellion, that they have a pretty clear vision about what they want to accomplish, and that's what you want to do here, is that you want to have a clear vision so that people don't need others to know what they are working towards.
yeah, and there's an organizational process called holacracy that sort of uses that approach. Here's the vision, and then just sort of self-organize towards the vision.
Okay, I don't know what that word means, but it sounds like some sort of organizing, how you organize. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
Yes.
Is there some way you can change so that you see the boxes in 4? Because I think it's annoying that. Does somebody know what I mean?
Yeah, up above on the upper right hand, there's it says speaker view and gallery view. You click on
Right up. Right up
Ah,
corner.
yeah, right. Gallery view. Okay, so yeah. What I'm sitting with today, right now, is that I have a conflict with a friend where I've been feeling kind of exhausted.
Yeah. What I hear is that you're sitting with a conflict with a friend, and that also at the moment you feel exhausted.
Yes, and the conflict is about me, me trying to solve all our issues that we have. I'm the one who takes initiative to solve things and resolve things, and it feels like he just he just rolls with it. He doesn't do anything.
What I hear is that the conflict is about initiative, and that you say that you you take most or all the initiative, and that he rolls along and in that sense doesn't take so much initiative.
Yes. And the thing is that he has issues with communicating his needs, and our relationship has mostly been me trying to guess his needs, MVC style. But now I'm coming to the point where I'm tired of doing that. I want the relationship to be more balanced, where he takes responsibility for finding his needs and telling me what he wants, and yeah.
So what I hear is that most of the time, in your perception, you were the one who was guessing his needs and putting some time and effort in that. And you don't feel the balance, that's also coming back to you, or that he's helping you with getting your needs clear. And what I hear is that you're that you're tired, and one thing would be if he would take more care for his own needs. So
yes. And that brings me to today's subject, because I think that a culture of empathy is self-responsibility. That feels kind of in the forefront right now, that we take responsibility for our own wants, for our own emotions, for our own needs. I think that is so important to build this kind of culture of empathy, because one person can't sit and empathize all the time with another person. It has to be balanced.
So what I hear is that you also see that as the link to the subject for today, the culture of empathy. And for you, one central or important aspect of a culture of empathy is also responsibility, that people take some responsibility for their own needs. And it also, the issue that you have with your friend kind of reminds you strongly of that. It's something that you really long for, this equal responsibility and this balance in responsibility.
Yeah, self-responsibility and balance, I think, is important. That each and every person makes an effort to empathize with the other. Yeah.
And what I hear is that you also, that it's about balance, and also that there is this willingness or this taking an effort to catch each other's needs.
Yeah.
There's some balance.
Yeah, and listen, reflecting back and listen empathically also.
And on top of that also reflecting back and listen empathically.
Yeah, I think that's it for now. I feel heard.
Okay. Carolina, would you like to reflect me back?
Yes, with pleasure.
So first to arrive a little, kind of I just came rushing in, kind of I'm doing a project here. And it was just at 7 o'clock that I came in I'm in some kind of Airbnb thing here. So I have to get a little bit used to the place here. And I'm just rushed in. So that's where I am at the moment, trying to land a little.
So you just you are a little bit feel like in a rush because you were, as I understand, traveling somewhere and you change your place. You just got to this place and you feel like you need a little bit settle down, calm down right now.
And when it comes to the subject, the culture of empathy, I have a question that's that I'm playing with the last couple of days. It's slightly related, or it is related, but it's slightly kind of a different angle. And the angle that I have is that I kind of more and more present myself as the one who's telling the new story, who's sharing the new story. Also seeing that the old story that we used to have, what it is to be human, that doesn't work for me. I see there is a new story. And at the moment,
So for last couple days, you were thinking about this topic, but from a little bit different angle. And it's because you perceive yourself as a storyteller and you use this expression like new story, old story. And old story is a story created by the present, the current culture, current civilization, and you're thinking about a new story. That is about future, sort of.
Yeah, it's about a future story, or it's a story that I would like to share. And I noticed there are several things that I'm actually already doing. And I find, okay, what are the most successful things that I'm doing? I know there's one thing that I like to play with, and I like to share that in kind of the story sort of play that I do, that there is this inherent connection with planet Earth. That's for me an important aspect.
So you are a storyteller and you actually not just saying stories, telling stories, but you also, well, there is a part of the story that is sort of not game, play, and it's you already act somehow, and the important element is this deep belief that we have inert connection with Earth.
So I see that as one of the things that I'm already playing with. Then there's also this thing of heart energy, of feelings and needs as inherent valuable, and that you can also play with them, and that they are, in my perspective, at least as valuable as thoughts.
So beside this inert connection with Earth, there is another thing, is you describe as a heart energy. Yeah. Yeah.
And I noticed for me, this heart energy has several aspects that choices are made from this energy, from this heart energy. That's one thing. A second thing for me would be that it's that it's valuable to share them. It's something precious.
Mhm.
So here.
So you naming some aspects, some features of this heart energy. One is making choices from heart. Another thing is sharing this heart energy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I see that it's time, but there is one thing that pops into my mind.
I think that we can, if other agree, we can prolong as you finish this.
No, it's just very shortly. It's kind of something that just popped into my mind. What I also see, what I sense now when I'm telling it is what's a very strong thing for me. That by having this deeper connection with planet Earth, that it's also like, it's almost like the feelings and the needs come from there also, not like one-on-one, but I feel there is some connection there, that there is this thing by having a deep connection with Earth, there is something that somehow it is connected with the feelings and needs. I wouldn't say that they come from there. That's a little bit too mystical for me, but I sense there is some relation there when I say that.
So you thinking aloud when you sharing your thoughts, and it came to you that this connection, deep connection with Earth, kind of triggers some needs and some needs, as I understand. It's not like it's coming from the Earth, but from this connection, but this connection is triggering them somehow, is involved in creating those needs somehow.
Yeah. Or if I would say it kind of, if they come from Earth, it sounds a little bit too weird for myself.
Yeah.
They come from the connection. I think that's a nice way to say that. Kind of from the connection with Earth. There are a lot of things come from there.
So we have deep connection to the Earth, and from this connection, not from Earth, not triggered by Earth, but from the connection itself, the needs come from this connection itself, from this relation.
Oh. Yeah, thank you. I feel fully heard.
Thank you. Wasn't easy for me. Thank you. Okay. So I will choose Edwin.
Listening.
That was interesting about connection to the Earth and needs that comes from this relation.
So you're just finding it very interesting what Richard was saying about needs and feelings coming from the connection to Earth.
Yeah. And specifically, not from Earth, but from this connection. That's interesting. A little bit mystical, I would say. But our life is I think, somehow mystical. We behave like we need to be rational in a Western terms. And we're afraid to be mystical or, speaking from heart. Maybe this is the problem with culture of empathy.
So you're seeing it, what Richard is saying, that it sounds a little mystical to you, but maybe that's a problem with reason, is sort of missing that mystical aspect, and somehow you're connecting that with it being a problem of a culture of empathy. Maybe the culture of empathy is too reason-based or something like that.
So until this moment, I have two very interesting elements. One is what Richard just said, and the other one is this responsibility for empathic speaking and listening I took from Sophia. So this is another feature I'm noting down and add to my collection of features of culture of empathy, responsibility. I don't know how to name what Richard said yet. I have to think about it more, but now I see those two elements.
Mm-hmm. So you've been taking notes on this. So you're including the notes on the responsibility that Sophia is talking about, and then you're trying to make sense, it sounds like, of what Richard is saying, and kind of incorporate that.
And I love very much not splitting heart and mind, which is typical for Western culture, but not typical for Eastern culture. I think it's Japanese language where we have this term of shin, which is heart-mind. Heart-mind, and it really, this term really speaks to me. I believe we can't split completely mind and heart. We feel our thoughts, we have emotional relation with our thoughts, our beliefs, even those scientific theories we agree or disagree. We have very emotional, full of feelings attitude. And I know that scientists, especially those who work on so-called hard science like biology, physics, engineers, they think they are rational, they are reasonable, but I don't believe that. I think they are the same way emotional, and as in social science or human sciences or art, they just don't realize that. Sorry, too long.
No, that's fine. So you just don't see the separation between heart and reason, and you're seeing that they go together, and that reason there's feeling in reason, and that, like, when the scientists are saying, oh, we're just using reason, that there is actually feeling within what they're doing. Just like it is with the social sciences.
Yes, but well, feelings, my time is almost up. Feelings is not, I think in this case I would use emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It is a feeling, but it's I would say even more precisely emotions, because well, scientists sometimes says, well, this is beautiful theory. When they say that, what do they actually say? They admire it. It's feeling, but it's emotion.
Mm-hmm. So
and
the word feel,
and they choose theory not rationally.
Mm-hmm. So it's the word feeling didn't quite resonate. It's really about emotion. And you're seeing that when a science says, oh, this is a beautiful theory, they're making the decision based on the emotion of the beauty and other emotions.
Yeah,
kind of what they're making a decision on. So
yeah, so for me, emotions are part of feelings, but I wanted to highlight the fact that it's not just general feeling, it's even more. emotion. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I
so it's
prefer.
deeper than just a feeling. It's actually an emotion.
Yeah.
Okay, then speak to Richard. Yeah, just talking about going back on what Carolina is saying, that I got connected with a group that does a lot of sort of intellectual, like it's called the kind of dialogues online. And we're going to be holding an empathy cafe. They invited me to facilitate a cafe with maybe 20 or so of their members online. And the topic is going to be, what does reason feel like to you? So I'm pretty excited about that, because they're trying to bring in the rationalists, So I really want to kind of build on what Carolina is talking about. That what is the felt experience that people are having with when they reason? And I'm really, it's going to be next week, and kind of looking. You would all be invited to it, but it's 3:30 my time, and so really middle of the night for you. But you are invited.
So what I hear is that there will be an event next week, which is about reason and feeling, and it had a really nice question like, how does it feel to reason? Or I forgot.
What does reason feel like to you?
What does reason feel like to you? And I hear and also see your excitement when you talk about it. And you also see the connection with what Carolina was talking about, like this mind-heart connection.
Yeah, I use the word feeling. I see feelings as sort of a very broad term, like it seems to me that we're always feeling. There's always some sort of a sensation that we have. And sort of, I don't really differentiate so much between feeling and emotion. It just seems to me feeling is really this broad term of, the senses we have, the visceral felt experience. We're always feeling, even when someone says, I'm not feeling anything, or I'm in reason, there's still a felt experience to that. They're just, yeah.
And what I also hear is that you would like to say something about this feeling and emotion. And that for you, the word feeling is the most broadest. I'll see with your hands that you have this. But feeling is the broadest of the term that you like, that it also encompasses a lot of other things.
Yeah, and I'll add too, just because of the NVC part, NVC tries to differentiate feelings and needs, but it seems to me needs are feelings as well. Maybe a feeling for connection, or a feeling for, love or autonomy. Each of those has a visceral felt experience quality to it. So even needs within the NVC context seems to be about feelings, but feelings that we're sort of desiring.
So what I also hear is that you say that when you see feelings and needs, and that they are differentiated in NVC, but you also notice that if you have a need, that there is also a sensation, and that in that sense that it's also a felt sensation. So you see, in a way, that needs also have some aspect of a feeling, especially that there is some sensation or something tangible or sensational.
Yeah, and then going back to what Sophia is mentioning about her relationship, I have thought about that too. In a relationship, can we have sort of a culture of empathy agreement, right? That we explicitly say what is the relationship that we want, and have a bit of a clear agreement on it, and then sort of dialogue about and negotiate that agreement. But it's based around empathy, right? That we want mutual empathy. It's just not, hey, me empathizing all the time and you get hurt all the time, but that it's really mutual, and we have some kind of a real clarity, about that, and it come to a mutual agreement. It's sort of like a constitution, right? You got a constitution in a government. We have sort of like an empathy constitution in personal relationships.
What I hear is when you connect it back to what Sophia said, is that you also see that there is some kind of agreement when two people are in a form of a relationship, that there is some agreement. And that it's almost like a constitution, but then between two people there is some expectations, agreement, commitment.
Yeah, it's something we're moving towards. So there's a lot more, but I feel heard. Yeah, fully heard because my time's up.
Sophia, would you like to reflect me?
Yes.
What I find interesting, of all the things that we have combining, there's also this thing of responsibility. What I sense is also some kind of responsibility to not talk as Earth, but talk on behalf of Earth or something. Something that there is something that I'm talking as also be responsible to something bigger than me, kind of than planet Earth.
So you want to broaden the responsibility, what do you say? The word responsibility to taking responsibility for basically the living parts that can talk for themselves.
Yeah, and the things that cannot talk for themselves, but what I also find interesting in a relation, I can talk about me, the other person can talk about him or herself, but what I find interesting, what I discovered lately, there's also this thing like, okay, there is the relation itself, which cannot speak by itself, but it can speak through one of the people, so to say. And I find it also interesting, like there is for me also the thing that I sometimes struggle with in relations is that I see like, okay, I can take care of myself, the other person also, but by being together, it's a little bit what Edwin said, like there is some constitution, but also by having this constitution, the relation itself also becomes something tangible. And then kind of I can care for that, or I can speak on behalf of the relation, not necessarily for my own or for the other, but and one thing that I also notice in some relations where I am in, that I feel like, okay,
can I reflect?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about not only the objects outside of ourselves, talking for them, but also in relationship with other people, that there seems to be one person taking care of themselves and the other person taking care of themselves. But then there's also the relationship in which you can talk in behalf of, but it's not, it's kind of abstract, so it can talk for themselves. Yeah.
And one thing that I find it out kind of at the moment, I have some relation that's under tension, I could say that. And it's interesting that I met some people where I could felt like, hey, they care about this relation that I have with another person. So I could feel like, okay, this person is not, so a third person is not choosing me or the other person, but I could feel like, hey, this person really cares for the relation, the connection that is between us. And I could also, for me, there's also like, hey, this relation in itself becomes also something. And I noticed when I felt that some people cared for that, I felt touched or so. I said like, it's not necessarily about me or the other person. It's not about choosing, but there is something in between. It's not like a child. A child is very, very concrete, so to say, and it has its own identity, but a relation can also be something that can be nurtured and can be supported by the outside.
Right. Okay. So you have seen in your life that people, some people seems to care about your other relationships, And when you see that, they don't seem to put you or the other in the forefront, but they put the relationship in the forefront. And that seems to be touching for you. And you said something about a child. Yeah, I don't remember anymore.
Yeah, but I also and for me that's also kind of at some point kind of when I'm talking with people, it's not so much about getting my own needs met or so, but kind of nurturing the thing that is between us, which has partly his own life or so, or it is this. And what I notice, it's not only kind of between two people, but it's also in a group or so, that there can be something that's bigger or more abstract than just everybody's own needs or so.
Right. So you see this the relationship as something bigger than separate individuals' needs, and you have also felt that in groups that the relationship seems to be bigger. Yeah.
And there's one thing that I would like to add, kind of in a way, when I say this now, kind of I also feel some kind of empathy for people who in the United States are kind of trying to keep this old United States up or so. No, it's not my United States. And I think it wouldn't mind so much if that gets renewed or if it gets, but I do feel some empathy for people who are trying to, or I can understand them, that they're also trying to hold up something that's there for them. So I feel some kind of, with this insight, I feel some warmth and some kind of opening towards understanding people that I find hard to understand at the moment.
Yeah, so you're feeling empathy and warmth towards people who really care about your country or the United States, and they seem to care for this abstract thing, but it's really important to them. And when you talk about the things that you have talked about before this, you feel this warmth towards them.
Yeah, I know, so I can go on, but for now I like to stop, and thank you for listening. I feel heard. Yeah.
Thank you. Carolina.
Yes, I'm listening.
Yeah, I like that idea that Richard was talking about, that when you're in a relationship with other people or another person, there's two people, but there's also the relationship. That's a separate kind of entity.
So you like what Richard was saying about relation between two people which become a separate entity, sort of ends, being, separate existence.
Yeah. And as to continue with the values, because I'm really stuck on that, the values of a culture of empathy. A thought that comes up to me is boundaries and capacity. Yeah, you can reflect and I'm gonna explain.
So now you focusing on values of culture, and those are boundaries. Oh, I probably
And capacity.
Boundaries and capacity. Okay, and now you want to explain that. Okay. Mm-hmm.
The first thing, I think those two go together because all human beings have different capacity to listen to other people and to empathize with them. And in order for us to be empathic, truly empathic, we have to know that capacity, our own capacity. So I think I would call it self-awareness, some sort of thing, self-knowing or something.
So, if I understand correctly, you're saying, if it's okay, do you hear me correct? Well?
Yes.
Okay. So you perceive capacity and borders. You use word borders. Boundaries are connected. And first, you're talking about capacity, and you believe that all humans have different level of this ability to listen and to hear others. And the thing is to know it, to know my own ability or capacity to listen and to hear another person. And it is, you call it self-awareness or self-knowing my own capacity or self-knowing myself.
Yes, I think that is one of the things that I'm myself is trying to discover within myself, because I have noticed that if I listen too long to other people, there builds up some resentment with me, and that is a boundary within my own capacity to sort of like, no, I have listened enough now, I don't have more capacity. And I think that is a kind of, that is to nurture the relationship, that entity that we are talking about here from people, to be self-aware. I don't know if that makes sense.
So you referring to your personal experience when you listen to another person, you experience those moments when it triggers sort of resentment. And you feel like you can't listen and really hear anymore. You have to stop. And you thinking if it has something to do with this relation as a separate identity, well, separate being, a separate existence. You just thinking aloud, as I understand.
Yeah, and to be self-aware and to be self-knowing of your own boundaries, that is a way to actually nurture the relationship. Yeah.
So very important thing, if we understand, if we know our own capacity, that means our boundaries, we can, so to speak, wittingly nurture the relation with other person, because no, that will be too much. That will be my other my interpretation. You're just saying that self-awareness of our own capacity help us to nurture the relation with other person, kind of create
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. I feel heard.
Thank you. So how to, maybe to Richard now. I will.
Yeah.
I don't know if time is working or not. What's happening? I'm sorry, I have to check. Okay. It's interesting that relations might be a separate existence, separate being. The ants. It's like in relation between two people, there are actually three of us.
So you're intrigued by this idea that there's the connection itself could also be a being, and also the idea that if there are two, then actually there are three of us. So to say.
Yeah. And in philosophy, there is very important element of in phenomenology. When we read the book and we think about the text we're reading, we actually add existence to this book. We make it growing. It's very interesting. So it might be not just relation between two people, but also relation between human and earth, and human with any item. And fact that we're thinking, we're feeling, is creating, is adding existence to this thing.
What I hear is that you also have some inspiration from philosophy, where there is this concept that in a way, if you read something, you add or you bring something in existence. You also see that could be applied to what we are talking about, that there is, if there is a connection between two people or more people, that we bring something into existence, that there is something, that it's actually a creative act.
What is very important for me is to highlight the fact that there is something that the separate existence, separate ends, and we add existence somehow. We add being to it. We make it bigger. That's what is interesting. The book is not anymore the book I took to my hands. It's much more.
So what I hear from you is that it's important to say that we add existence. And by that also, if you read a book and at the end it's not the same book, kind of, because we added something to that. We added some existence.
Yeah, and the same thing happens with everything we're doing. How it relates to the culture of empathy. If we understand our relations so substantially somehow, and we consistently, continuously add existence, to it, what it actually means.
So what I hear is that you would like to connect it to the question that we have, the culture of empathy. That you also see that we can add existence to that. And the question that you have where you are right now is, what does that mean? What does it mean adding existence to something like culture of empathy?
Well, maybe not culture of empathy, but in general, but you know, everything that is a part of it. Okay, so relations, patterns, habits, customs, economical relationships, cultural phenomena, many different things. We add something to it. We make it bigger. And what is it? What it means? I don't have answer. I just start thinking about it.
So what I hear is that we can add a lot of things to that. And that's the question that you have right now is, what does it mean? What is the...
I don't know, something broke. Hello? Are you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
See you, yes.
But I didn't hear the answer, Richard's answer, the reflection.
Okay. Can you say it again? Because kind of if I reflect, I kind of so what you have something broke down and you didn't hear the reflection.
Okay. What I meant. My time is up. Okay, I have to stop now. I'm sorry. Now I'm too much distracted. Thank you. Thank you. Until this moment, I fully heard. Thank you.
Okay. Edwin, would you like to reflect?
Yep, listening.
Yeah. One insight that now comes through me is kind of also sensing that we are a little bit struggling kind of what does culture of empathy mean and what's our vision with culture of empathy. One thing that just struck to my mind is, in a way, kind of how would it be to turn the question around and say, like, hey, there is something between us, not just the four of us, but everybody who somehow, and there is a being, and that being has a vision. How can we help that vision to become more clear instead of us making a vision, so to say, kind of? And in a way, what I like is that it's something with humbleness, I think.
So you see that we're struggling with this vision of of a culture of empathy. You're kind of trying to individually sort of come up with something, and an idea that came to you is, well, maybe there's this being here among us, and we just want to support it in articulating, expressing its vision of a culture of empathy, and feels like that's a more humble approach to going forward.
And then I'm also intrigued by this this thing with what was talked about the book, you know, that we bring something in existence. So I find it's an interesting paradox that there might be something between us that we all feel that's there, that we're also willing to spend our time and energy on, that in a way that it has some own movement, kind of almost independent from us. And at the same time, it's us who brings that into existence. So kind of I find that an interesting thought. And
so it's an interesting thought that getting a little bit of echo there. If you ever have earbuds, it would help with some of the. There's also background noise periodically. The fan of your computer, we kind of hear that.
Oh.
So this little reflection of the fan. That's sometimes, not always. So. So it's an interesting thought for you that we're sort of bringing, just like with what Carolina was saying about that there's sort of this different, that we're sort of creating the book in a sense when you read it, that, and in the same way that we're creating something together sort of outside of us, but yet it's outside of us, but yet it is us too. So there's sort of that being that, I don't know if you heard that, but it's inside, it's part of us, but yet outside of us, and just kind of an interesting, just sitting with that awareness.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you very well.
Yeah. And coming from that perspective, I would also say, okay, what would be the question then? Kind of, okay, what wants to, you get into the words like what wants to emerge, what wants to emerge here with the four of us, but also the four of us as function of a bigger group. So what wants to emerge?
So you're just sitting with the question of, in the relationship of the four of us, what is it that wants to emerge, and just sitting with that. And it looks like you're maybe sensing into it and seeing what comes up, kind of giving it space to.
And what I also noticed for me, that's also kind of something that I find very interesting. That's kind of things that it's, for me, culture. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a culture of empathy, but it's definitely the story that I want to be in and that I want to spread, that things are not so much about persons wanting something, but there is some kind of sensitivity and people sensing what wants to emerge from a bigger perspective or so. And I think a culture of empathy is also something bigger that wants to emerge, and we are part of that. And I find some kind of, and in a way there's some kind of a relief, but also some kind of, we don't have to do this all ourselves or so, but something like, hey, something is going to happen, and we can support that instead of having to create that.
Yeah, it's there's something, this feeling of letting something emerge, something actually wants to emerge, and to sort of support it in emerging, instead of maybe this, sort of a forcing it or kind of pushing it to emerge.
Yeah, thank you. I feel heard.
Okay, great. Then I'll speak to Sophia. Yeah, that's interesting, because I had started thinking about that too, in terms of, we are here in a relationship. What does the relationship say? We're four of us here in this relationship, and sort of, thinking about that, and how do we even sort of feel into the relationship itself? It's like, what wants to emerge in this relationship?
You've been sitting and thinking about we four sitting here together, and what's emerging out of that, out of relationships in general, it sounds like.
Yeah, and even how to have a sense of awareness of the relationship and sort of hear the relationship. I'm sort of trying to sense into that, like I'm just sort of sitting with that question too.
So also sort of like sensing into it almost sounds like you see sensing into as a value of itself.
Mm-hmm. And another thing was, I did want to go back with what you're talking about, boundaries, capacity, self-awareness, and self-knowing. I would say that that's sort of like self-empathy again, right? So it's sort of feeling into saying, whatever is arising, the feeling of, oh, somebody's doing all the talking, I'm not getting heard. And there's a feeling of irritation, of, you know, it's something feels constricted. There's maybe some pain. And that's sort of the body saying there's something here, and being able to be sensitive to that, I think, is really, important.
Yeah, so you mentioned what I talked about boundaries and self-awareness and capacity, and you would like to sum that up into self-empathy. So sitting with someone who talks a lot and feeling that irritation, and just, yeah, it sounds like you are talking about giving that empathy to ourselves also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then how to name it, because I can have those feelings, but I don't know how to share those feelings. Like, I have family members that talk and talk and talk. It's like the feeling that comes up is, I really want to get away from here. How soon can I get away? You know, it's like, and I don't say it. You know, I don't say, you know, I'm getting really exhausted. I feel like there's, you know, how to even articulate the feelings that come up into me in an authentic way. I don't even know how to really do that, you know, well, always, you know, so I'd like to get better at that.
Yeah, right. So you're talking about an experience that you have with some relatives that talk a lot, and you have a general wondering, how do I express that to them, that I want to get away, I don't want to listen anymore. You're sitting with that and thinking,
yeah,
that authentic,
how to express it in real time. So, and then it also made me think of the relationship. If we had a relationship here, if the relationship had self-empathy, right? Like, what would the relationship say? You know, it's like, if the relationship is having self-empathy, what would the relationship say? And so I am the relationship, and it's like, oh, I feel some warmth, some care, some connection, but I also feel some anxiety, you know.
Yeah, so you're bringing in this third entity and just reflecting upon what would that entity say? What that entity could self-empathize.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like, oh, I feel a little anxiety because I don't know where this is all will go. Is me as the relationship. I'm in unfamiliar territory, and I feel some anxiety about what might emerge.
Yeah, right. So I'm not sure if you're talking about you or the entity now.
I'm talking about the entity, yeah.
Yeah, so the entity is saying, I have some anxiety now, and I don't know where this is going. And yeah, you seem to have some, I see some excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the relationship has some excitement. So I feel heard. It's my.
Thank you.
This faction of the part of the relationship ran out of time.
Okay, so then I'll switch back to you, Edwin.
Okay, listening.
Yeah, I like this conversation that we're having about the third entity. I really enjoy having that conversation.
So you're feeling some enjoyment about the third entity conversation we're having.
Yeah, and I've been sitting with some anxiety in this circle, because I have this, I need to remember, oh, I want to say something about what he said, and I want to say something about what she said. And then I forget about it.
So you feel some anxiety because you want to be able to respond to different things people have said, and then you forget about what you wanted to say, and so it's just some anxiety comes up that you're going to lose, something's going to be lost.
Yeah, and then I worry about not having anything to say when it's my turn.
And then you have some anxiety and worry that when it is your turn, you're not going to know what to say.
Exactly. Okay, so now I remember. It seems like we're talking about something very abstract. I mean, empathy, the culture of empathy. What exactly is that? I'm trying to grasp what it is that we want to sort of pin down. It seems like the culture of empathy is an entity of itself right now.
Mm-hmm. So you're trying to pin down what this abstract notion of a culture of empathy is, and it seems like it's its own entity, and you'd like to pin it down.
Yeah, and what is our relationship with the culture of empathy? Yeah, my head is just spinning.
Yeah, it's all these things, and your head's just kind of spinning right now about what is the culture of empathy, and how do you pin it down? And
yeah, and I think we just have to land somewhere that we all have our different relationship with what it is. I think. It seems to be, when I listen to everybody talking here, it seems to be about relating. How do we relate to others? Yeah.
Yeah, so one aspect of it is about relationship. You're saying that we're talking about relationships and how do we relate to each other?
Yeah. Yeah, that's seems to be the kind of part where here do we begin? How do we relate to each other?
So
yeah.
It's really just sitting with the question. It starts with the question of how do we relate with each other, and it's sort of like the starting point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'll end there. I feel
Okay,
her.
you feel heard. Then I'll speak to Carolina.
I'm listening.
So a big part of, there's two sort of aspects I sense. One is the felt experience, to speak from in the moment of what my felt experience is. So that's sort of one aspect that, and I kind of sit with that, like, oh, how can I speak more from what it is that I'm feeling in the moment?
So you see two aspects of this situation. One is experience that we feel right now, here and now, and we speak from this experience, what we actually feeling.
Yeah, it was more from myself, from my own feelings, wanting to sort of, even though I did have the thought of, when you were reflecting, I wondered if with your reflection, when you reflected, you would name a feeling that the person was having. I was wondering about what that would do.
So you made a small correction that you meant your own experience of this situation. And the other thing that was that when I was reflecting you back, you start thinking how it would be if I would name the feelings you have.
Yeah. And so it is, yeah, this aspect of naming feelings, you know, getting better at naming feelings is something I'm struggling with. There's some struggle, like, so I've sensed some struggle in myself.
So another thing is you struggling with naming feelings, and as a, well, let's say just that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's another aspect I see of empathy is sort of the role taking perspectives, that I can take on any role like an actor and just see what feelings arise. So I can sort of take on the role of the relationship. Like, I am our relationship. What is it that I feel in the moment? Yeah, and I feel like, and if I do that, I feel the quality of a big sort of hug that kind of reaches around all the boxes.
So another aspect of empathy or culture of empathy is role playing. So like an actor, we can take the role of anything or anybody or anything.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, a relationship or the circle among us. And when you try to play this role, you feel like, and now I'm reflecting back by movement, like embracing all of us.
Yeah, the relationship is sort of, it's sort of like an octopus sort of embracing all of us. Yeah.
So you see relationship like an octopus that kind of takes his
tentacles
and embrace all of us gently, I suppose gently.
Yes, very gently. And there's also some kind of anxiety. I sense a little anxiety about where's all this going. It's like, so I said, where, you know, what will happen? What, you know, where am I?
So you prolonging this role playing as a relationship or relation. I'm not sure which word I should use. And you feel like relation asking itself, what's going on? I feel some excitement. Anxiety. There's some anxiety. What will gonna happen next? Where I'm going? What will gonna happen to me? Or what will gonna happen with all of this?
I feel fully heard. Thanks.
Thank you. That was funny. I like it. Okay, I have to choose someone. So maybe Richard. You have to mobilize yourself. Now you feel. Do you hear us? Yeah. You have to mobilize yourself. You feel a little bit sleepy after eating too much.
Mm-hmm.
You have to reflect that back.
Okay. So what I hear is that you that you saw me lying on the bench, and that you also saw me eating something, and you made some nice connection between the two.
Okay, and I mobilized you.
And you mobilized me.
To be more active. Yeah, actively listening to me. When I think about relation that was the relation we gave birth to, all of us today, now, and it's growing, raising. I I think that important element of it is trust.
Mhm. So what I hear is that that you see that we made a relation today, or we nurtured a relation, and that one of the important aspects of that was trust, or is trust.
I actually said we gave birth to this relation. I
Mhm.
believe this is much more stronger statement. And coming back to the book I read, I read, and I add existence to it. To do that, I need to trust this book.
Mhm. When you go back to the metaphor of the book, and that that you can add existence to a book, you see that trust is a necessary element for that.
Well, when I was talking about the book, it was obviously metaphor, but it was also a real situation. I really believe that when I read books and I make notes, I talk to the book by writing my notes among the text that is on this book, in this book. I'm talking, I perform dialogue, and through this dialogue I add something to it. I enrich this book.
What I hear is if you read a book, a physical book, that you also write notes in it, and that you also talk to it, and in that sense you also, on a physical level and also on other levels, you add some existence to the book.
Yeah, so it's a metaphor, but it's also a real thing. That's how I feel it. And with everything, what we do, I feel this way. And it requires the trust.
Mm-hmm.
But I also we have to trust to some extent to each other, and we have to trust this relation that we created among us, to be in it and to add something to it, to let it grow. We need trust it.
What I hear that this trust is really the central aspect, and that is it's trust between us, but also trust with the thing that we created in the middle.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say is this expression by, I think it's by Nietzsche, that when you stare into the abyss too long, the abyss stares you back.
Mm-hmm.
When you look too long into something, it starts looking at you back. I like this,
Mm-hmm.
especially as a diver, but but also it tells me that this relation start affecting me. It's not like only I affect this relation, it's also affecting me. I love it.
So what I hear is that you're also a diver, and that you also see that if you stare too long in the abyss looks back. And one thing that when you were saying, kind of what also, that you also are aware that the culture of empathy is now staring back at us. That's the association.
Yeah. Actually, there was the expression used by philosopher Nietzsche. It's not diving expression, however, among divers is very popular. Yeah, thank you. I feel heard.
Edwin, would you like to reflect back?
There we go. Listening.
In a way, kind of, I notice there's not so much to say. Kind of, I am enjoying the conversation. I also notice now, kind of, I don't want to add so much, but more, if I'm going to say something, it's more that I want to enjoy it or celebrate than to add things now. That's what I feel. Or maybe I want to add celebration.
Mm-hmm. So there's not much you're wanting to say, or what you do say you want it to be so it's having a celebration, something maybe that wants to be said, or
I like the balance that we had in this conversation. The balance partly because we all speak like 5 minutes. But I think I also like to celebrate the variety, kind of. I'm not sure if I want to put it in words, but I can sense that by having the four of us, that there is some richness in variety that I sense, and that there is this. Also, I feel thankful for hearing voices that I wouldn't. I feel thankfulness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you feel gratitude that you're hearing voices that you might not hear otherwise. So there's some thankfulness, gratitude about that, and also sort of a valuing or appreciation of the feeling of balance. That everyone's getting sort of equal time.
Yeah, and also variety about perspective. I noticed there are perspectives that wouldn't come to me or so, and I find it interesting to hear those perspectives, both in the active listening, but also in the passive listening. That's like, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. That it's almost like thinking with four brains or so. That it's like kind of normally you think from, oh yeah, this, and this, and now by seeing our brain here in 4 elements or so, that kind of the ideas kind of come to each other, and kind of even if I'm not actively listening or actively speaking, kind of, it's still like this brain or maybe heart brain thing still keeps going on, so to say, and I can still follow it. And I can, oh yeah, that's kind of, and I like how things build upon each other and how things connected back, and also seeing how things come back, and in a way I feel joyful that kind of that's I think I can see every one of you in whatever is happening right now, and that's what I enjoy this. Yeah, so I like.
So you're just enjoying that you're seeing each of us in this, and it's like there's a sort of a sense of like one brain, but sort of different parts of one brain. And even when you're not speaking, the brain is still sort of working and relating, and things are building on each other, and just that whole quality. You're sort of enjoying or you find it interesting. You're finding it interesting how it all sort of works.
Yeah, and the thing is, kind of, I also would like to say, like, for me, it's not necessarily a brain, but I would say a heart-brain thing.
Heart-brain. Yeah, more accurate. You mentioned it was like a heart and the brain together.
Yeah.
Heart-brain.
And I find it interesting, kind of how we feel and think or brainstorm or reflect with each other as almost as if we are one being or so. No, that's not the right term. Kind of that is, and I think that's also where I feel the trust or so, that there is this trust. I I can feel how trust enables this. And I can also celebrate the trust that I feel, the trust in, it's something like the trust in being with sensitive people. It's also the trust in tuning in. I feel that we are tuning into each other. Yeah, so I like to celebrate the trust that I sense, and also.
Yeah, so you're just going to celebrate the sort of the nature of the trust. There's a trust of tuning into each other, and just different aspects of that trust, and you're wanting to just celebrate that. Yay!
Yeah, so I feel fully celebrative. Yeah.
See, I'll speak to Carolina.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, I really like that. I was really getting a sense of that quality. You look into the abyss and the abyss looks back at you. It's like I'm just kind of sitting with that so that feeling of the, because I have this sense of the abyss. It's like there's something, I see this abyss, and it's sort of like kind of a little anxiety about being kind of lost and consumed in the abyss. So it's just seeing the abyss as, you know, something that talks back was kind of interesting.
Sorry, I was muted. So you referring to this expression that when when we look at the abyss too long, abyss starts looking at us back, and you have very sensual, I would say, with senses. I mean,
Visceral.
image of it, like this abyss is consuming us, embracing and consuming us.
Yeah, that's sort of my fear, is being sort of consumed by this abyss. And I am seeing there's another aspect of the abyss. I mean, how to relate with the abyss is to go into it, to say, oh, here's the abyss. Let me get closer to it. Let me look at the abyss and have it really get really close. So if it's like a giant monster, I want to be able to see the individual hairs on it, right? It's like zooming in, or like a photograph. If you take a photograph and you zoom in on the photograph, you start seeing individual pixels of the photograph. So I find that that's one kind of a way of sort of moving into it, is to get really close to it.
So you, from one side, you feel some fear when you think about it. You don't feel comfortable, but from the other side, you want to look into abyss, and you understand that by getting closer and sort of zooming in the abyss, which is like a monster, and in some point of zooming in, you start seeing very little details, like every hair, or comparing to the computer metaphor, every pixel.
Yeah, and as I sort of zoom in on it now, I find that it sort of moves into me, and I sense it almost like ice water in my veins. So if it's this part, and kind of in the core, it just feels like there's like ice water, sort of a feeling of ice water in the marrow of my bones. Is that specific abyss, my abyss.
So the abyss you sense is very particular, and you kind of feel like it coming into you, and you feel it in your body, and you experience that, you feel, using this word, feel it as ice water.
Like ice water. So I'm trying to get closer to it, and as I get closer to it, it starts feeling like ice water in my veins.
Ice water in your
like
veins.
Ice frozen. You know, it's like feels.
And you feel like abyss is frozen you.
Like a sense of coldness, like deep, you know, kind of that biting coldness when you're so cold that it just like hurts. It's painful. So
yeah. So you're referring to this sort of feeling that the ice, when it's all like burns us, when we touch skin, you actually don't feel cold, but kind of burning. And
it's not burning, it's just painful. It just hurts so much. It's just so deeply painful that
so you sense this sort of pain.
Yep, my time is up. So I was kind of going into it, but there's a lot more that I feel heard. Thanks. So we probably, if we want to end, we have maybe 3 minutes. If you want to do a 3-minute term before we go back to the full group.
So you want me to refer to, you want to do what?
No, you can do, you can speak.
Okay,
someone
so,
and...
well, I would like to choose Sophia, but Sophia will not have chance to
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay. Okay. When Richard was talking about this entity, like brain of our four people, I was thinking about collective heart brain or heart mind. It is sort of collective feeling, collective experience. Every one of us experience that separately, but we also happens something together. And probably this is this fifth identity among us.
Yeah, so when you heard Richard talking about the entity of this group, you were also thinking about the collective entity of humanity. It sounds like you are fascinated.
Not humanity. I was referring to our group of four.
Oh, this group. Okay. Yeah, so you're talking about the entity of these 4 people.
Yeah, and the fifth one is the collective brain, heart brain, or collective relation. Yeah. And I have to say that I don't feel fear when I'm thinking about abyss. I feel cosmos and universe, mystery and fascination, absolutely fascination. Nothing about fear, just curiosity and the wish of embracing back abyss. I don't feel fear at all.
Yeah, so you're having this big smile on your face because you don't feel fear when you're thinking about the abyss. You just think about the cosmos and the universe and curiosity, and yeah, it seems to spark some joy in you.
Yeah. And when I think about this trust I was saying on the beginning, this trust is connected also to this idea that we can find in definition of Carl Rogers, that we have to leave aside our own perspective, our own view, and trust and go with the other person in this journey, with the other person. It is also about trusting this person in this journey. And what we are doing, we travel together and we trust each other that we can leave aside our point of view when we try to reflect the other person. Yeah, something like that. There is a lot about trust in it for me. The
So,
leap of faith, the leap of trust.
so you're thinking about trust, and you're mentioning Carl Rogers and his saying of going on a journey with another person. And it seems like you're talking about this group right now, because you're mentioning that we need to have that trust with each other. It seems like we have that trust with each other to trust the other person that they will go on our journey. And
Yeah, and also trust in a process, the whole process. This fifth identity we're talking about. We have to trust it. And we do actually that. I love it.
yeah, so you're mentioning this fifth identity. Fifth
Identity, yeah.
Yeah, and that seems to be that trust.
In a
Trust
process.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Closing the rooms. Keep going. You got a minute if you want to.
Okay, I don't want. I feel hurt. Maybe Sophia want to say something, even without reflecting.
Yeah, I just have been thinking about maybe having more specific examples, because we talk about kind of abstract things. So I want to end with the question: how can we listen to each other more empathically? That is what I've been sitting with.
Okay, see you in the group. Hold a question.
Are we all here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you wanting me to?
Yeah, just debrief and kind of closing.
Do you want to stop recording and start again, or?
I think I'll just do one big recording, just
okay.
Keep it simple. Thanks.
So yeah, so if everyone wants to say some words to harvest whatever came up in your circle today, we can just, yeah, Bob.
There is a word that is often misused, and it's a loaded word, and it's a dangerous word, but it's a good word because in its proper use, it expresses the connections and the kindness that we have for each other. And I'm talking about intimacy. For me, this is a good group of intimacy and friendship and kindness and caring, and I am so blessed to be part of it.
There. I can go next, I suppose. It was lovely today as always, and the things that stayed with me was to do with humor, sense of humor, and how we need that because we are not always evolving as much as we'd like as a collective of humans, but humor seems important. And also caring. We spoke about caring in various contexts: healthcare, intergenerational, community, all these. But yeah, care and caring was quite present today.
Well, I'll go. I'm just sensing that I feel my awareness feels more kind of open and in this area. It's like it's not like all in my head. It's kind of space, more kind of a spacious feeling has been created, and I really enjoy that.
I could go next. What I would take away, one thing I'm going to take away is just remembering how much easier it is to feel optimistic and hopeful when I feel connection with other people.
I can go next. Do you hear me?
Yes.
The thing I take with me is we talked a lot about the abstract, the kind of relationship that we have both with each other and with the earth, and sort of like the entity that is the relationship with all living beings. Basically, we talked a lot about that, and I found it to be very fascinating.
Thank you, Sophia.
What I like, the word that stuck with me is the collective heart brain. And I find it very interesting to almost see with those 4 pictures, kind of seeing this collective heart brain in action, so to say, being part of that heart brain that was working in those images as a representation, which I find magic. Like it's almost like looking into a brain, like or a heart brain.
Okay, I'll go. I just really enjoyed, hearing and sharing other people's journeys, and I feel that it's important. I don't know, what the outcome is. And we talked about heart brain too, and I'll just say one quick thing. In the development of the human, in the developing egg, the heart is actually outside the brain, and they switch places as you develop. The brain goes inside and, they switch places. I forgot exactly how it is, but actually the heart and the brain actually exchange places through our human development. And I think that's really interesting.
Oh my God.
I may have gotten the sequence wrong.
Carolina, I think you're left.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot it. I'm sorry. So it seems to me that our collective heart brain that was in our room and was growing with every 5 minutes, every round, kind of expanded beyond our room and get to your room and have been there as well as in our room, breakout room. So it's interesting, really interesting. A little bit mystical, but no, it's not mystical. It's yeah, I enjoy it at all. I have to a lot, and I have to listen back once more our recording after the meeting. That's for sure. the collective heart brain is watching us right
Mhm.
now
Mhm.
because we paid a lot of attention to it.
And it's looking back at us. We're looking into it and it's looking back. That was something of the abyss.
Mhm.